Consider the object before us. It is cold, hard, and aggressively industrial. It possesses the smooth, antiseptic gleam of mass-manufactured porcelain, a material designed not for aesthetic contemplation, but for the most base and private of human functions. It is a Bedfordshire model urinal, standard issue, pulled directly from the inventory of the J.L. Mutt Ironworks in New York City. There is no chisel mark here, no brushstroke revealing the trembling hand of a genius, no evidence of labor or sweat. It is a pristine, anonymous product of the machine age. Yet when we stand before it in the hallowed halls of a museum, or rather when we stand before one of the authorized replicas that stand in for the lost ghost of the original, we are not looking at plumbing. We are staring into the abyss of the 20th century's most radical artistic gesture. Marcel Duchamp did not make fountain, he chose it. In that act of selection, he performed a kind of modern alchemy, transmuting base matter into gold, not through chemistry, but through context. Notice the orientation. By rotating the urinal 90 degrees, placing it on its back rather than mounting it upright against a wall, Duchamp stripped the object of its utility. It is no longer a vessel for liquid waste. It has become a sealed basin, a concave mystery. The drain, usually the lowest point of the structure, now faces us like a mute mouth or an unblinking eye. This simple physical reorientation forces a mental reorientation. We cannot use it, even in our imagination. We are forced to look at the curves, the shadows, the way the light catches the glazed surface. We are forced to see the silhouette of a Buddha or a Madonna in the gentle slope of the ceramic, a visual pun that dances between the sacred and the profane. And then there is the signature. Scrawled in rough black paint on the lower left rim is the pseudonym rmutt 1917. It is a graffiti tag on a pristine surface, a smudge of rebellion. The name itself is a labyrinth of jokes. Mutt was a reference to the popular comic strip Mutt and Jeff, implying a kind of bumbling everyman, a little guy, a fool. It was also a phonetic play on Mott, the manufacturer, but altered just enough to avoid legal trouble and to introduce a note of poverty, of the mongrel dog. By signing it, Duchamp parodied the sanctity of the artist's signature, that final stroke that traditionally confers value and authenticity. Here, the signature is the only thing the artist actually painted. It is a corporate pun signed by a fictional nobody. This is the birth of the Readymade. Before this moment, art was defined by craftsmanship, by the physical manipulation of materials to create a representation of the world. With this ceramic vessel, Duchamp declared that art could be a decision. The artist is no longer a creator of objects, but a generator of ideas. The shock you feel when looking at it, the instinctive recoil, the question, "Is this it?" is the artwork working exactly as intended. It is an intellectual trap. The beauty of the object, if it exists, is secondary to the violence of the choice. Duchamp took a fixture designed to be pissed on and placed it on a pedestal, demanding that we worship it, or at the very least, that we argue with it. It is a $0 masterpiece that questions the value of every $1 million painting hanging in the next room. Transport yourself back to the spring of 1917. The Great War is raging in Europe, tearing apart the old world order, while in New York City, a different kind of revolution is brewing in the insulated world of the avant-garde. The Society of Independent Artists is preparing for its inaugural exhibition at the Grand Central Palace. Their motto is a beacon of democratic idealism: no jury, no prizes. Anyone who pays the $6 fee can display their work. It is meant to be a rejection of the stuffy, exclusionary academies of Paris. It is meant to be a haven for free expression. Duchamp, a founding director of the society, decides to test the limits of this liberal promise. He submits Fountain under the name Richard Mutt, paying the fee and awaiting the inevitable collision between principle and prejudice. The reaction was immediate and visceral. The board of directors, unaware that the culprit was one of their own, fell into a panic. This was not art, they argued. It was indecency. It was a joke. It was plagiarism. The fountain may be a very useful object in its place, one board member famously sneered, but its place is not in an art exhibition, and it is by no definition a work of art. The hypocrisy was instantaneous. The society that claimed to accept everything could not accept a urinal. They suppressed the piece, hiding it behind a partition, effectively censoring the very freedom they claimed to champion. Duchamp, quietly observing the chaos he had engineered, resigned from the board in protest, though he never admitted to being rmutt at the time. But the scandal did not end in the exhibition hall. The true genius of Fountain lies in its media manipulation. After the rejection, Duchamp and his friends took the urinal to the studio of Alfred Stieglitz, the legendary photographer and gallery owner. Stieglitz, treating the object with the reverence usually reserved for a Brancusi sculpture, photographed it against a dark background, manipulating the lighting to emphasize its curves and shadows. In his photo, the urinal looks ethereal, almost ghostly. This image was published in the second issue of the Dadaist journal The Blind Man, accompanied by an unsigned editorial, likely written by Duchamp himself, that delivered the definitive defense of the Readymade. Whether Mr. Mutt with his own hands made the fountain or not has no importance, the text proclaimed. He chose it. He took an ordinary article of life, placed it so that its useful significance disappeared under the new title and point of view, created a new thought for that object. This sentence is the fulcrum upon which modern art turns. It shifts the definition of art from making to thinking. Ironically, the original urinal from 1917 vanished shortly after Stieglitz took his photograph. It was likely thrown away, dismissed as rubbish by someone cleaning the studio, or perhaps broken. The object itself was treated as trash, confirming its ambiguous status. For decades, Fountain existed only as a rumor, a grainy photograph, and a scandalous story passed down through art history. The physical object was gone, lost to the landfill, but the idea had been planted like a virus in the cultural bloodstream. The fact that the original is lost only enhances the myth. It proves that the original never mattered. The art was not in the porcelain, the art was in the gesture, the rejection, and the discourse that followed. The scandal of 1917 was not a failure. It was the performance itself, revealing the boundaries of what the world was willing to call art. The crater left by Fountain is vast, and we are still living inside it. Duchamp's porcelain prank effectively killed retinal art, art intended solely to please the eye. Before Duchamp, painting and sculpture were largely judged by their aesthetic appeal, their ability to mimic reality, or their emotional resonance through color and form. They were visual experiences. Duchamp found this boring. He wanted to put art back in the service of the mind. He wanted gray matter art. By presenting a mass-produced object as a masterpiece, he severed the link between the artist's hand and the artwork's value. He proved that technique is not a requirement for art. A thought is enough. A choice is enough. Consider the paradox of the fountain we see in museums today. The original 1917 object is long gone. The versions you see at the Tate, the Pompidou, or the MoMA are replicas commissioned by Duchamp in the 1960s. They are copies of a copy. They are handmade reproductions of a machine-made object that was originally presented as art because it wasn't handmade. If you try to untangle this logic, you will find yourself in a philosophical hall of mirrors. Does the fact that Duchamp signed the replicas make them real? Does it matter that they are not the specific urinal rejected in 1917? The answer, according to the logic of the Readymade, is no. The specific atoms of the ceramic do not matter. The idea is the artwork, and the idea is indestructible. The physical object is merely a carrier, a husk, a placeholder for the concept. This detachment of art from the physical object is the foundation of the contemporary art world. Without Fountain, there is no Andy Warhol and his Campbell's soup cans elevating the supermarket to the gallery. There is no Jeff Koons and his balloon dogs exploring the banality of consumer culture. There is no Damien Hirst preserving sharks in formaldehyde. Duchamp gave artists permission to use the world itself as their palette. He predicted a future where the artist is a curator of reality, selecting fragments of the environment to recontextualize. We can even trace a direct line from the urinal to the modern phenomenon of NFTs and digital art. When a collector pays millions for a digital token representing a JPEG that anyone can right-click and save, they are participating in a Duchampian exchange. They are buying the idea of ownership, the concept of the work, rather than a tangible object they can hold. They are buying the signature of the artist, the modern equivalent of rmutt scrawled on a blockchain. Duchamp showed us that value is a consensus, a collective belief, a game we agree to play. So when you look at Fountain, do not look for beauty, do not look for skill. Look for the invisible wreckage of the rules it broke. It stands there, white and silent, a monument to the moment art stopped being about what you see and started being about what you think. It is the ultimate joke, and the punchline is that we are still laughing, arguing, and thinking about it a century later. The urinal is gone. Long live the fountain.